I'm Lucy McCarraher. I'm the founder of Rethink Press, of Book Magic AI, and the Business Book Awards. I'm an author. I've written 13 books, and I'm the UK's most experienced business book mentor. And I am about to talk to Prosper on the online prosperity show. And I'm going to tell you about my journey from publishing a theatre magazine to becoming one of the UK's biggest hybrid business book publishers, and all sorts of other things in between.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. And I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga. And today, we've got a guest who's turned the blank pages of opportunity into a library of success. Now, help me welcome Lucy McCarraher.
Hello. It's very nice of you to have me here, Prosper. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Now, Lucy, with all that pre-chat that we had, you actually didn't help me in pronouncing your last name. How does that go, by the way?
I know. I'm sorry. I should have said that. It's actually pronounced McCarraher, which is not what it looks like. Nobody gets it right, and I always forget every time to tell people how to pronounce it. So I'm sorry about that. I apologize, and I entirely blame my husband's family.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's all my fault equally, because I've heard it being said, but then when I say it
And
now,
then you look at it and you think, what a ridiculous name. How on earth do you say that?
but that's besides the point for those that are watching right now. I mean, if you ever wondered how to go from theater magazines and TV shows to now becoming a publisher of books, you're in for a treat, because Lucy is a woman who's not only writing bestsellers, but also knows how to create them with a sprinkle of AI magic. When I saw what they were doing, at Key Person of Influence, helping people be published and putting content out there, I actually started following that whole mob. But Lucy is on a journey of her own right now, and she's going to be telling her story and how she's helping authors to actually become published and also create legacies that they never thought or dreamt they could themselves. So whether you're an aspiring author or you're a seasoned entrepreneur looking to make your mark, Lucy's here to share her journey from TV screens to the pages of over 1,000 books. And I'm going to encourage you to grab a notepad and a pen, because I think this episode is going to be packed with insights that you do not want to miss. Now, Lucy, you started off doing theater magazines and you founded a TV show. I mean, that was, running for a while, and now you're a publisher. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about your journey and, what people would know in the shortest amount of time?
Well, yes, I mean, I can't claim to have a, thought through career path. Things have tended to happen to me. Opportunities have come up and I have grabbed them. And that's what, that's the route I've taken. So I can't kind of offer any great advice about how to plan your life. But I started off, my kind of official career, if you like, my working life started off in Australia. In Newcastle, New South Wales, when I moved there with my then husband, who took a job lecturing at the University of Newcastle. And I was still doing my degree, but we were both absolutely, he was lecturing in drama and theatre arts. At that time, I quite wanted to be an actor. And so what we did was kind of dive into Australian theatre when we arrived. And it was just amazing. And so we started a monthly theatre magazine, which was a completely insane thing to do. I mean, what we actually did was found a company and become entrepreneurial. But in those days, nobody was using the word entrepreneur. It wasn't sort of like in the general currency. So we didn't have any roots to follow, really. It was just a kind of idea. It was a passion. It was something we'd done as students in the UK, and it was kind of mad, but we kind of did an extraordinary thing because we ran a magazine called Theatre Australia monthly for 8 years. And as you're well aware, Australia has a very large geographical spread and a pretty small population, and theatre in itself is a pretty niche area. So it was not exactly a financially viable thing to do, really. But what was around in those days was funding, arts funding, and so we got funding from the Australia Council and from all the state arts councils. We somehow managed, although we were both English, we were both Poms. We arrived and we had no experience of Australia, but we somehow managed to get on board a steering committee of the great and the good in Australian theatre, and they helped us get it, get the magazine going and running. And it was incredibly hard work. It was very, very good grounding. I mean, as I say, I was still doing my degree at the time, but also running. I'd never run a business before, but we were learning that on the job. Running a theatre, running any monthly or regular magazine. I mean, you're running to deadlines and to timetables, and you're dealing with people. You're trying to get people to write their copy, their reviews, their articles, and get them in. And it was it was very, very hard work, but incredibly good experience all round. So that's what I did for 8 years. And that was what spun off, because I then became, in a sort of small way, known for being an expert in theatre and entertainment. I was offered a job reviewing theatre on the news at NBN3 television in Newcastle, and which was a really kind of adventurous thing for them to do at the time. And that led to them then creating a weekly arts and entertainment program called Review that I co-hosted with another presenter, and that ran for a couple of years, and that was great fun. That was a very enjoyable thing to do. So as you can see, it was sort of that was the start of my kind of way of finding opportunities, grabbing opportunities, and doing what came up.
Absolutely. What a journey. And it's quite exciting that you literally created, first of all, the whole entrepreneurial thing as you landed into Australia. And I was actually guessing or thinking while you were speaking, is that where they derived the word starving artist? Because I can only imagine you trying to get all this acting going and the magazine going all at the same time, without any sort
Well,
of.
yes, it was a struggle financially. I mean, we were lucky because the whole point of us being there was my husband had a lecturing job, a university job, so we did have an income, but we did actually put our house on the line to get the magazine up and running, which was it was the whole thing was not particularly well thought through, but luckily we had enough kind of oomph behind us and kind of passion to get it going. And it was sort of one of those things that was the right thing at the right time. It was difficult, but there was a real appetite for it. Australian theatre was amazing at the time, so I actually ended up interviewing people like oh gosh, who's the star of Mad Max? His name's just gone out of my head. Very famous, but
Well,
but people like Judy Davis and lots of really well known, but are now well known but up and coming film stars and people who So they were in theatre at the time. They went on to do film later, and I got to interview them for either the magazine or for TV. So that was good fun.
absolutely. So Mad Max was Mel Gibson, was it?
Mel Gibson, that's right. I interviewed Mel Gibson on his first professional theatre job. He was playing Hamlet at the Nimrod Theatre, and he was very young and very shy, and I was sent to interview him. I was young and I was shy at the time as well. So it was really hard work. He said almost nothing. When I asked him questions, he would go yes or no or and so I had to kind of yeah, write up things that I thought he might have said later. But that was yeah, that was
Absolutely. So
fun.
that would have put you on a path to publishing, not necessarily in the book publishing world, but just putting content out there is a form of publishing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Especially with what it is that you are doing. What sort of when you look at it right now with what you have done, how did it then marry into the actual book writing that you're now doing?
Well, I was doing a lot of writing for the magazine because as an editor, you have to kind of, you get lots of other people to write things for magazines, but you also have to fill in the gaps and write a lot yourself. You also have to edit other people's work. So that was really useful. And then the whole business of publishing of, print and distribution and all that sort of thing. So it was, although magazines are a different proposition to books, it was still it was the same area, lots of useful learning there. And then we came back to England after 8 years, and I worked for other publishers then as a freelance editor, and then we went into TV and video production, and that was in a sense a different kind of publishing. So in fact, we invented something called video books, as we called them then, which were simply the very early non-fiction videos. So things like we did cooking with Prue Leith. We did videos of gardening with Alan Titchmarsh. I don't know if those names are particularly familiar to you, but they're well known. Then again, they were kind of less well known at the time. They're now very well known British stars. Prue Leith is a famous cook. Alan Titchmarsh became a famous gardener. So we created a genre which literally wasn't there before, of kind of learning to cook, a cookery book on video, which is you can find that anywhere online now. Recipes and cooking is hard to avoid on social media, but at the time that was a really innovative thing to do. So that was a different kind of publishing that we went into at that point.
Absolutely. I quite like how you're always on the cutting edge of these things. It's either there's no precedent of the actual occurrence, or you're studying in a whole new world of yourself. But before this, you did mention you were in university. Pretty much after university, did you ever then go to any work sort of, or
I
any?
have never had a job, a proper job. I mean, I've been, employed as a freelancer and a consultant, or else I've worked for my own, or, mine and my husband's, companies. So I have never, I don't think I've ever actually applied for a job or worked for anybody else anywhere. And that wasn't because I thought, oh, I am an entrepreneur, I am not going to go. It just is literally, this is what happened. And so this is what I did. I can't claim to have any great, sort of powers of foresight or, planning. It is just what came my way.
Absolutely. Wasn't it the great Steve Jobs that says you cannot connect the dots looking forwards, but you can only connect the dots looking backwards? So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
usually when stuff is happening, what I really encourage people is just pay attention, because one day you have a good story to tell. And in your case, Lucy, you'll be telling it on the online prosperity show. So it's one of those things. But is that maybe the reason why it became easy? I mean, since you hadn't maybe had a job, it became easy for you, obviously, to take on these kind of new projects all the time that really demanded your time. And also you working with giants like Microsoft and HBSC as a work-life balance consultant.
Yeah, well, that came later as well. When I mean, what unfortunately happened was that sort of the end of my kind of TV and video career was because I split up with my husband. So he kind of, was running the business, took the business. So I needed to find something else to do. And once again, somebody offered me a job, which was again in a very new area, and it was called family friendly working at the time. And then it was quite new, and it was a voluntary organisation who was working with parents and looking at the whole issue really for the first time of what we now call, of course, work-life balance. And so I worked with them, and I became a work-life balance consultant. And it was partly because it's a bit of a flashback in a way, but at the time that this all happened, the previous British Labour government with Tony Blair had just come into power, and they were very open to different kinds of, new ways of thinking. And they put a lot of money into backing work-life balance in all sorts of businesses. So the charity I was involved with got a whole load of work through the government schemes, and that's how we got into, because we worked with, hairdressers, small companies, and but also kind of government departments, and as you said, companies like Microsoft and Virgin, HSBC, all sorts of, they'd all applied for these grants for work-life balance from the government. So we went in as consultants to look at their work-life balance. And I have to say, it was absolutely fascinating to see how they were essentially treating their employees, and whether they understood that actually flexibility and all the sorts of options for different kinds of working arrangements. I mean, most of them had never thought of it before. It didn't, it was not on their kind of radar at that time. So I used to run trials for them with teams, having different kinds of ways of working. And it was, I mean, what it's extraordinary to me that this then kind of sort of disappeared. It didn't become a huge thing again until COVID. And suddenly everybody had to look at flexible working and distance working and working from home and working in different ways. And, then it's, recently it's suddenly become an issue again. But when I ran those trials, every single time we did it, it showed that if you had flexible working, different working arrangements that suited a whole team. Some people would do one kind of flexibility, different kinds of hours. Every time it impacted positively on productivity, on retention, recruitment, general kind of happiness, and people staying with the company. And it never ceases to amaze me that people are still questioning whether that's a thing or not, but it is.
Absolutely. Well, I was actually going to ask, does that work-life balance ever exist? Is it something that's actually possible? I mean, looking at the way people use technology these days, we're always connected to our phones, and
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's so true. There's a very different kind of work-life balance that you have to consider now. And when people, get the chance to kind of shut off and be at home as opposed to at work, and it wasn't quite like that then. I mean, it was. I mean, there was, people were still, kind of obsessed with whether they had to answer emails at 2 o'clock in the morning and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing is that everybody has their own definition of it. And, it's important to work around everybody's needs and desires. And some people's will be very different to others. Some people will be very happy, working at night, for some reason. And it doesn't, for what I kind of believe is that it's not the person sitting on the chair in the office during a particular set period in the day. It's the outputs. It's what you do, and what you achieve. And if you do that at 2 o'clock in the morning, that's great. And actually, that's how we've always run Rethink Press. So we're a completely virtual organization. We're international, and we don't have an office. Everybody works from home. So I think, my kind of work-life balance experience has definitely played into how I run the companies I run now.
Absolutely, I quite like that. I think in Australia they've just recently sent put out legislation that people now have a right to disconnect. But that's a story for.
Yes, I saw that. Yes, yes, indeed. Interesting. I'll see. Be interesting to see how that works out.
Absolutely. Now, you were starting to talk about something interesting with Rethink Press. I mean, obviously, like you said, you are working remotely and you've got your team dotted all over the place. This is something that just also became very common only a couple of years ago, like really for a lot of people when Zoom
Yeah.
became a thing. But you obviously would have pioneered that, yet another thing that you spearheaded.
Well, again, it wasn't. I mean, we didn't think of it as being pioneering. I mean, I started Rethink Press 14 years ago with my business partner, Joe Gregory. And what actually happened is that I'd been writing some books at that point. He published one of my books. He was running a small publishing company. We discovered that actually we lived quite near each other. We met at a networking event, and he told me that his business partner had recently left. And I thought, that's interesting. I'd be interested in going back into publishing. So I suggested to him that we work together, and I became his commissioning editor. He had a company called Bookshaker, which had published my book. And within and he was working on the traditional model of publishing, which I probably have to explain before I can make sense of how we changed to do Rethink Press. So traditional publishers invest in books. They pay for the book to be produced, to be edited, to be designed, to have the cover design, and then to be distributed and then marketed and whatever. And then the publisher takes the only way they can make their money back, get their return on their investment, is to sell books. So traditional publishers are looking for authors that sell books. So they then take the lion's share of sales income, and the author gets, say, 10% of that. And that's what's called royalties. Now, that only works if you have authors who are going to sell and want to sell lots of books, if they have a wide market, if they're writing a book that will appeal to a lot of people, thousands of people. Otherwise, the business model, that traditional publishing business model, doesn't work. So when I came to work with Joe, he was working with entrepreneur authors, with coaches and consultants on that model. But it seemed to me that most of those people were not looking or indeed able to sell a high number of books through what we call trade sales. They were looking to give away lots of books to their prospects, to clients. They were looking to use their book to build their business, which doesn't really work for the traditional publishing model. So I suggested to Joe that we try another way of doing things, that we start another imprint, which we called Rethink Press, because we sort of rethought the business model. And that is essentially what is now called hybrid publishing. And it is the model, the business model is that the author pays upfront for all those things that I mentioned. So the editing, the design, the typesetting, the proofing and all that. And that's a publishing package that they buy, that the publisher then does the publishing, the distribution, helps them with marketing. But it then what then happens is the publisher does not have to make their money back through sales of books. So we are able to create books that sell authors, as opposed to publish authors who sell books. So that's how we started. We weren't sure 14 years ago whether that was going to be viable, whether authors would be happy to do that. But actually, as it turns out, 14 years later, they were, and they have been, and they're very happy. And the other great thing was that we linked up, again, a kind of coincidence with Daniel Priestley's organization, the Key Person of Influence program, which one of its key aspects is to encourage and indeed, insist that on the program, every entrepreneur write their book. So, that we were a perfect fit for each other. And I also became the published mentor for the Key Person of Influence program. And then I had all the, sort of resources of Rethink Press as we grew behind that to publish their books. So that's, that's the story of Rethink Press and hybrid business book publishing.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for taking us on that journey, because obviously the traditional model wouldn't work on today's entrepreneurs. Not a lot of them have that much reach, and
Exactly.
it's no longer back in the time where everybody would watch the same TV channel, everybody would be listening to the same news or reading the same newspaper, where it was a one size fits all. Now there's so many different genres and groups of people, and I think how you also again pioneered that methodology of rethinking that sort of publishing is what a lot of people are now doing. And I think that also really popularized the self-publishing movement.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we couldn't have done it without, Amazon and print on demand publishing, which also removed the gatekeeping aspect of traditional publishing, because before that, if you could print your own book, and the publishers who did that were kind of unfairly called vanity print publishers, but you couldn't get it distributed. You could not get it into bookshops if you weren't with an official proper publisher. And then Amazon came along and knocked that away, because you could sell your book. Anybody could put their book up online and sell it. And now, of course, there's Amazon, but there's plenty of other online book platforms as well. And most publishers have both. So you don't really need to be in bookshops anymore. And the other thing about traditional publishing is they took a risk. The publishers would take a risk on printing books. So, they would pay for 500, 1,000 books to be printed on the assumption that those books would sell. But of course, publishing is a game of chance, really. Most publishers make their money on 10% of their authors who do sell lots of books. And, say 80% of their authors, 20% probably sell very few books indeed. And there's a sort of bunch in the middle called mid-list authors who sell enough just about to kind of wash their faces. Their books, cover their costs, but don't make a great deal of money. So traditional publishing is all about picking those authors who are going to make you money. And that's the only way you can do. Well, we can, at Rethink Press, we can publish anybody with the tiniest niche market, because they want to get their book out there to that market. It doesn't matter if they have, a market of 10, but they still want, 10 potential clients, but they still want a really good book out there. And that's what we have really, our whole ethos is that, it doesn't matter how big your market is, you can write a really good book for that market. And that's actually what I have mostly done, is sort of the mentoring of the writing process. And Joe is very much more on the publishing side. So it's a good combination. But I think it's really important that those people, entrepreneurs, business owners, are able to write good books and get them published professionally, and have a book to be proud of, that then works and helps them build their business, and they're not excluded because they're not selling enough copies.
Absolutely. And I quite like that you did mention you partnered with the key person of influence, Daniel Priestley.
Yes,
They're quite big around here in the Australian market. And I quite
absolutely.
like the, is it five P's that they have in
Yes, yes,
publishing?
that's right.
Publishing happens
Publishing
to
is the
be
second one. Yes, I always forget one if I do this, but there's pitch, publish, product, profile, and partnership. And
absolutely.
those are the five P's. And it is actually a brilliant concept for helping entrepreneurs grow their businesses. Those five things are the key things that will really, if you work through that program, you'll absolutely, businesses just take off. So it's and publish being get your book written and out there. And our whole thing, our strap line at Rethink Press is nothing sells you like a book. Because it's your undercover sales agent. It's not a marketing brochure. It's not a business card. It's not a pitch. It is a thing of value. And it just, it's got a price tag on it. So it's not, you can't use it as a sales pitch. You have to simply give value, tell your reader what you do, how you do it, give them case studies, give them a really valuable tool really to use. And then the idea is that you pitch it to your ideal client. Other people will read it, of course, and get lots of value out of it. But your ideal prospects will then realize that from the information in the book, that you are the person they need to come back to for implementation. And that's how I call your book your undercover sales agent.
Absolutely. So obviously I was still, looking at how you then transition, because you now coming in with Rethink and merging somehow or partnering with key person of influence, that must have brought in yet another learning curve or some sort of transition issues with that, because this is two
Yeah,
different.
absolutely. I mean, it wasn't so, I mean, what happened originally was that I went into, well, Joe also, went into the Key Person of Influence program as a mentor. I mean, each of the five Ps has a mentor in usually in the different countries. And I became the published mentor primarily for the UK, but I've also gone to Singapore, to Canada, and I mean now it doesn't matter anymore because everything's online. But in those days, we were actually going out and giving big workshops in person. So that's what I was doing originally, and then all the entrepreneurs, the key person of influence, people who are on the program, because I'd been teaching them how to write their books, they then, of course, came back to Rethink Press to publish their books. And so the two companies, Dent and Rethink Press, merged. So it was interesting. But I mean, we still run Rethink Press very much as a separate company, but just with crossover.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, you would have been exposed to over 1,000 entrepreneurs, while you're mentoring them to
Absolutely.
write their business books. And I've been on a journey myself to write a book, and it's one of those very daunting, experiences, because you feel like you're putting it all out there and you're leaving yourself to be exposed. Now, what sort of fears do people have, especially when it comes to writing a book? And obviously, as a mentor, how do you actually help them process these fears and
Yeah,
conquer them?
you're so right about that. It's a very personal thing, writing a book. It's you really, I think most authors do feel that they're kind of exposing something quite deep about themselves, and what they fear is that they fear that they have nothing interesting or original to say, and and one of the fears is that they won't sell enough copies of their book, which I have to explain to them does not matter at all. It's not about that. It's about getting your book into the hands of the right people. But it's also what I need to tell them is that they are sitting on a gold mine. Their experience, their expertise, their industry knowledge, their client work is all really, really valuable content to put in their book, and it is important. And it can't be, nobody else can write that book. It is their book. It's their experience that matters. So yes, you'll bring in kind of factual content as well that may, come from, you might talk about your sources where you've learned from, other inspirations. But basically in your book, you're talking about what you do and how you do it and how it works for your clients. And that is, that is in itself valuable. And it's very much a question of saying, of telling people that they can't have imposter syndrome because it's what they do. They are not imposters. They do this. So that's what goes in the book. And to the right people, that will be valuable and interesting and will really help them, build their businesses. You're passing on knowledge. And that's what books have always done. They're an iconic format. And they have been going for centuries. It's the same simple pile of paper wrapped in cardboard. But it is just, it is an amazing format that gets information and education and entertainment across to people like nothing else, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I actually think it's a piece of technology that literally is a knowledge delivery mechanism, which is portable and people can carry it around elsewhere. And obviously, speaking of technology, you've actually gone on and turned your years of mentoring experience into like an AI assisted book writing.
That's right. Yes, yes, that is so exciting. Actually, I'm really we launched it early this year. It's called Book Magic AI because I always talk about book magic. That's where the name comes from. I say there's lots and lots of things you will get out of writing a book, which I can tell you for sure. You will get more clients, you will get more visibility and authority, but you will get something. And I don't know what it'll be for you, but for every author, there is one or more pieces of book magic that happen. And, so it's always very personal to them. It might be that, somebody you've admired forever gets hold of your book, you send it to them and they come back and talk to you, or you get an incredible speaking gig, or it's just sort of it's just the magic that happens when you write a book. So that's why we called it that. But essentially, yes, I sort of realized that actually with the advent of AI particularly, that you could take all the experience of my last sort of 12 years basically of mentoring all these entrepreneurs and turn it into a coaching app for writing the book. And we teamed up. So it is Daniel Priestley and Joe and I and a fantastic tech guy. I mean, I don't know. He's our chief technical officer, but he's brilliant he creates apps, Jonathan Farrar. And we have created bookmagic.ai from, kind of our experience and his ability to turn that into a working app. And I'm actually writing my own book in the app at the moment, partly to test it and partly because it just does work so well. So I'm writing the Book Magic book at the moment. So I'm writing Book Magic in Book Magic. But it does, I've been really thrilled at how well it works because it takes you through a simple process from positioning your book. So I think sometimes people don't even know what book they should write to build their business, but we have a positioning tool so people can get absolutely clear on who their ideal client is, their person, what their pain is. So we call this the 3 P's of position: person, pain, promise. The pain is where you meet that person who is your ideal client at the time that you start to share their journey, and then what your promise is, what you can offer them. And that is, when you've got that clear, that is the content of your book. That is what your book is about. And that's also how you create your title and subtitle. You have to have all those 3 elements in your title and subtitle. And if you put, we ask in the app, that's how we start off. We ask questions and you write about your business and your clients and what you do for them. And then, then the AI will summarize it all beautifully. And you've got this fantastic sort of summary of what you do and what your book's about. And it will come up with titles and subtitles for you. They may not, they're not necessarily going to be perfect, but, they're a really good starting point. And then you can sort of mess around with them and develop them. And it will help you write a really good introduction to your book at that point as well. But I will say it's really important to say we do not get AI to write the book. It does all sorts of work around the book, but it's absolutely vital that you write the book yourself. And you can do that by actually writing, or you can do it by speaking, because lots of people don't like the actual writing bit. I mean, they might be dyslexic, English might not be their first language, or they just, don't like writing. But you can talk your book into Book Magic. So, and it just, you can talk away and it just appears on the screen. And that's really exciting too.
Absolutely. And where can people go to start experiencing this book magic?
So it is literally, it's https / bookmagic.ai. And you can actually start it for free. You can do all that positioning work I've just described for free to test it out before you even sign up to a subscription. So, it's, you don't have to sign up without knowing what you're getting yourself into.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing those details. I'll make sure that they are in the show notes below. And I'm also happy that you've clarified that, it's not going to be AI that's doing the writing, because as you explained, what a book is just a bunch of pages that are wrapped in cardboard. Some of the stuff that AI comes up with is just like cardboard itself. So I was just thinking
that is such a good description of it. Yes, absolutely. I mean, the problem with AI, something like ChatGPT, is you can ask it a question and it will pour out all this sort of sophisticated looking content, this text that looks really well written. But actually, when you get into it, it's usually very superficial, repetitive, and it doesn't sound like you at all. And I think some people who don't rate their own writing skills feel that, AI can write better than them, but it's actually really not true. And the other thing is that you don't know where the material's coming from. And there are quite likely to be copyright issues, down the line. I mean, it's one thing to use AI to say, write your social media posts or just give you some ideas and thoughts. But to actually publish it in a book under your own name is dicey. You could self-publish it, but even Amazon is asking you now, is there AI generated content in this book when you upload your book to Amazon? So you would have to say if that was the case. And any kind of professional publisher, whether a hybrid publisher like us or a traditional publisher, we will not touch AI generated content if we find it. I mean, obviously you can't always tell, but if we find it in an author's manuscript, we have to ask them to rewrite it, because we don't know what copyright issues there may be, where that material might have come from, whether there will be any infringement that, could kind of turn up later. So, it's a bit of a grey area anyway at the moment, but AI is brilliant for sort of ideas and for helping you do things, but not for the actual writing of a book.
Absolutely. And also, thank you so much for clarifying that, because people would have just gone, oh, wow, we've been given the pen license by Lucy and we're going to go and write anything that we would have gotten from the language, models out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there is a book writing app out there that literally writes 30,000 words in 15 minutes. But it's nothing to do with you. I mean, yes, you could take it and self-publish it if you wanted to, but how would it help your business? It's, it's just stuff from the net that AI has kind of pulled in and turned into, an outpouring of text, but it's nothing to do with your business or talking about your original work or your clients. It can get AI can get, so much content and process it so much faster from outside, from anything that's, we presume is on the net, although not supposedly from other books, but it can't get inside your head. And that's what your book needs to come from. It needs to be what's inside your head coming out onto the page.
Absolutely, because it becomes now a gift. Because I viscerally believe we're here to live, to learn, and to contribute. So for us to be able to live the best lives that we can, we need to have learned and had all the experiences like you did yourself. And once we are there, we just send the elevator down so that others can also learn from what we came, what we have become. And a book is the best thing
Exactly.
to send down the elevator, because for one thing,
Yeah.
it's just a composite of everything else that comes along with it. Now, you mentioned you're writing a book through the, your new app and things like that. But obviously, this is not your first rodeo, right?
No.
You've also had a bit of ups and downs in the publishing world where you are you once wrote a novel that was deemed boring by an agent. I don't know
Yeah.
what were
Well,
they
I'd
thinking?
always, I know that was a bit of a shock to the system, but yes, I'd always, from a child, one of the things I wanted to do was be a writer. And when I thought about writers in those days, it was like storytellers, fiction, novels. So at some stage in my life, I thought, okay, I think I've got enough. I've got an interesting story in my own life that I can turn into a novel. And I'm going to, I had a sort of, I mean, they say there's never a good time to write a book, like there's never a good time to have a baby. It's but I thought, yeah, I'm going to try this now. So I wrote a novel. I'd written a couple of books at that stage. They were work-life balance books, so non-fiction. And I'd had very clear sort of instructions from the publisher about how they wanted it. So I thought, no, fiction's going to be completely different. It's all creative. I'm just going to get in the flow and write. And so I did. And I churned out about, I don't know, 80,000 words, a full kind of novel. And I really loved doing it. And I thought, oh, this is so original. This is so brilliant. And I knew a few agents in the business. So I sent my manuscript to an agent and she got back really quickly. So I was very excited. But she said, thanks for showing me your novel, Lucy, your manuscript. I'm afraid it was both boring and unbelievable. And I was just like, oh. So I said, it can't be unbelievable. It's true. This is my life. And she gave me a very, very good piece of advice. She said, life is not fiction. And that was, and also she told me it had no structure, which was completely true. And I just, kind of got in the flow and written stuff. And yeah, it was completely unstructured and therefore very boring as well. So I kind of whined and sulked for a bit. And then I thought, no, she's right. And I went off and did a lot of sort of research and reading around structure, and not just for fiction books, but for non-fiction books. And I really took on board the understanding that all books are a journey for their reader, and therefore you have to provide structure for the reader to enjoy that journey. You can't just kind of go here and there and wander around. You've got to be. It's a really important part of any book. So I took this. I took the novel, the story that I had kind of just poured out without any structure, and I rewrote it, restructured it. I entered it in a competition, and it got shortlisted, and that meant it got published by Macmillan. So result, I got my first novel published. So, but that was very much on that tiny piece of advice, and telling me that what I had written in an unstructured way was boring and unbelievable.
Mhm.
really made a huge difference to me. So, and I've taken that very much on board when I mentor people writing, entrepreneurs writing their business books. I always start with structure. After the positioning, I always make them plan their books in complete detail so they have a full, not just, a few ideas, notes, chapter headings, but really, really detailed structure. So that when they start writing, they know every 1,000 words has a title, it's a topic, it's a case study, it's, this is what it is. So it's there and they can never get writer's block because they always know what's coming next.
Mm. I don't think
So,
people
so
would
that,
get a
that
lot
was
of
my lesson.
yeah, I don't think people will get a lot of writer's block these days. Like you said, if AI can get you started, then obviously you're not just filling in the blanks with your story and your experience and things of that nature. But you will still find maybe, Lucy, as somebody who's coaching other people, they're still maybe a little bit nervous, maybe a little bit don't really want to jump in both feet, into writing a book and things of that nature. What sort of advice would you give to people like that have a story, a message, and would really want to connect with their audience?
What I would say is your book is so important. Well, firstly, it's a fantastic piece of self-development, even if you never show it to anybody. And some people kind of are so nervous that they think, okay, I'm going to write the book, but I'm not going to publish it. And if you want to go that way, well, think of it in those terms. But it's such a good piece of self-development because it gives you, when you're unpacking your structure and then writing about your own business and your experience, it gives you massive clarity about what you do and how you do it. You have to actually put it into words. And very often people say, writing my book has been so good for my business because I have, seen that I can make it better. I can see where I need to add more or less, or create a model for the work I do, a framework that I can easily sell to my clients. So there's that. And I think actually when you do write a book, you might start off worrying about it, but it actually gives you, when you finish writing a book and you've got it out there and you are an author, it gives you massive confidence. And I try and keep that in mind for people. It also makes you, I mean, nothing says expert like a book. It is that, that iconic format. If you've got your name on the front of a good book, you are clearly an expert in your field because you've been able to write 30,000 words about it or more. So those are the things that I try and sort of say to people up front. This is what you're going to get out of writing your book. Keep those front of mind all the time, because writing a book, as we've said, is a very personal piece of work, and you will go through ups and downs. And that's the other thing to remember, that I always say to people, it's not just you, it's not your book. At the times when you feel, oh, this is rubbish, I'm just writing nonsense, nobody's going to read this, it's really boring. Everybody feels like that. It's not just you, it's really well-known writers, it's really successful writers. In that, going through that process, everybody has ups and downs, emotional ups and downs. So bear that in mind too. And when you get to one of the downs, just push through, just keep going. And then and then when when you do get it out there and you see that you have done this, and when the professional editor has polished your writing and you get it back. I love it when our authors get their copy edited manuscript back and they read it through and they go, oh gosh, I've actually written a really good book, haven't I? And that they can see it when it's been professionally polished and edited. They realize how valuable it is, and that their writing is good, but we make it even better for them. We make it sparkle.
Abs-
So that's a lovely time.
Absolutely. Everyone wants to be an authority within their space, but if only they realize that the word authority is not complete with the word author in it.
Yeah.
So it is one of those things that will actually make a difference, for a lot of people. Now, I can't thank you enough for the time that we've spent on the call today. I know we have been, working frantically to get you on the show, but I'm so happy we managed to get a sit down. But it would be remiss for me not to ask you this. I mean, you've launched Book Magic now, and obviously you have disrupted the future of traditional publishing in the past, and this now looks like it's yet another disruption. What do you foresee in the publishing sort of industry, especially with the role of AI in writing and publishing?
I think it's going to be a very interesting time. I think things will develop in ways. I mean, this sounds like a bit of a cop out, but I don't think we can really, we can have a guess. I think there will have to be restrictions on the use of AI in terms of book content. I mean, already there are lots of lawsuits from authors to, AI companies saying that they have infringed, they can see that they've infringed their copyright. I think the issue of where our AI gets trained is a big worry, what it sucks in and then regurgitates, and nobody knows really. It's very, very opaque at the moment. And I think that will have to become more transparent. But I think there will be, a lot of kind of fights, if you like, on the way between authors and the publishing industry. I think probably publishers will stick for a long time to their kind of rule of we're not going to publish AI generated content. Partly because it's just too dangerous and you might get sued for infringing copyright, but also because, human creativity is important. And, really all AI is doing is using that and repurposing it. It's not making anything up of its own. So it's really important that I think authors and creative people are protected. I mean, it's the same thing with imagery as well. I mean, in the publishing industry, particularly for book covers, it's very easy to create a book cover with AI, but again, you don't know where an image might have come from. It might easily be something that somebody created somewhere that's AI has been trained on and pushed out into your cover when you try and design it. So I think it's going to be disruptive. I think it's going to take over not take over, but it will be used for things like editing, proofreading, typesetting. I mean, book design, interior design may be done much faster by AI. I think some people will lose out. Some jobs, but then again, there's always a place for the human as well. And I still think, a human editor, for example, is much better than any AI editor at the moment. So it's
Absolutely. I quite like the book and the smell of a new book, thumping
yeah,
through a book and everything else. You guys can go on with your AI and everything else. I'll be all right with my old library here. Now, Lucy, I
absolutely.
can't thank you enough for the time that we've spent on the call today. I mean, you've shared your incredible journey with us, insights, and everything else that has been in the creation of Book Magic. And I can't wait to see what's next and, what you've got in store for the entrepreneurs out there.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Prosper. Thank you.
Great stuff. I mean, your story is just a testament to the power of, first of all, following opportunities. Most of the things that you have done have not had any precedent, and you literally created just from your own whim. And I wish a lot of people had that ability to just follow their own conscience and follow their gut. And you never know what it would lead you to, and you've turned them all of those things into something extraordinary. Thank you so much for going through that journey yourself.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And for those that are watching right now, I think if you found this episode as inspiring as I did, just make sure you rewatch it, this time with a pen and paper, taking notes, because I know Lucy would have gone through quite a lot of things, and some of the things would have just gone through one ear and out the next. And if you have gotten all the information that you want from this episode, I would also encourage that you maybe share this with an entrepreneur who's trying to get their book off the ground, so that they can actually connect with Lucy and see what it is that they are doing at Book Magic, so that they too can experience their own book magic. And I can't wait to see what you guys are going to create with the information that we've given you today. Until next time, keep turning those pages into possibility, that you can create a legacy for yourself. Bye for now.